Okay, good morning and welcome to the second technical assistance webinar for early literacy grantees. My name is Brett Walker with the Oregon Early Learning Division, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. So our agenda for today is we are going to start out sharing some successes. I think this is a place that we always want to start. There's so much good work happening. And from there, I'm going to share with you some of the high-level data and information that came back from the output and activity reports that you all submitted in August. And next, one of the things that I want to start doing with this time that we have together is to share in a little bit more detail some of the great things that you all are doing. So today we are really fortunate to have Erin Richards from the Umatilla Moro Head Start is going to share some information about the learning picnics and traveling preschool strategy that they've been working on. Once Erin is done, I want to get into a couple just nuts and bolts things, specifically around program evaluation and budget. On the program evaluation piece, I have some resources that I'm going to share with you. And on the budget piece, just some quick check-in stuff. And I know folks may have some questions there. And then want to close out with just sharing a little bit of information around what I'm hoping to accomplish with some upcoming site visits and the site visits that we'll do with everyone over the course of the grant cycle, and share with you some dates that I'm going to be traveling around the state and see if we can start getting some things on the calendar. And as always, these sessions are really meant to be, as much as possible with a webinar, a back and forth, a dialogue. We'll have some specific time set aside for questions, but please do feel free to chime in with questions at any time. Happy to have this be, as informal as a webinar can be. Okay, so before we get going, I want to just do a few quick shout-outs here. First and foremost, as many of you I'm sure heard, congratulations to the SMART program for being awarded the 2014 Library of Congress Literacy Award. This is a really wonderful recognition of the great work that SMART does around the state. I'm sure all of you are familiar with SMART, but for anybody who's not, SMART is essentially a reading program that pairs adult volunteers with children to participate in one-on-one reading activities, and they've done really amazing work throughout the state, and are right now, as part of our literacy grant, doing work down in the Klamath Falls area. It looks like we have somebody from SMART on the phone or on the call, Alyssa, who I don't think I've had a chance to meet. But Alyssa, if you're on audio, is there anything you'd like to say about the award or about the work that SMART's doing down in Klamath?
We were really excited about the award, but the work we're doing down here in Klamath is reaching out more into some of our rural communities, which we're even more excited to be touching now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you and congratulations. I also want to say thank you to the Lane Early Learning Alliance. I had a chance to be down there maybe about a month ago and got a chance to visit one of the summer reading spots, which is a program that the United Way has been funding for a while now, and that the Early Literacy Grant is helping to support. And it's really a cool opportunity for kids to come out in the summertime and sit on some blankets under some trees and read books with adults and get to take books home. And it's really a great way to engage the community and volunteers, and also to give kids an opportunity to keep reading during the summer. We all know about the summer slide and how kids can lose some momentum from one school year to the next as they get older, and it's really important, as in the early years, to establish that the summertime is learning time, and the summer reading spots, I think, are really a cool program for helping to do that. So thank you to Lane for giving me the opportunity to see that. I also want to say thank you to everybody for submitting your August reports on time. We had 100% on-time submission with those, which I know, for you all is probably submitting your activity and output report is probably not the most fun thing you're going to do during the course of your month, but I just want to say how much I appreciate that, because that makes my job so much easier to not have to go track those down. And in a few minutes, I'll share with you some of the data that came out of those. It's pretty exciting. But just thank you, everybody. So what else do we have to celebrate? What else is going on that's good? What are some successes that you all are having that you want others to know about? I see, it looks like Julie from the coast. It looks like you have a hand raised. I don't know if that's intentional, but do you have something you want to share with us? Okay. Does anybody have something they would like to share? Something good that's going on with your literacy grant in the last few weeks? Don't be shy. This is your time to brag about your work in your community.
Yeah, Brett, can you hear me? This is Jim Tomlinson.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hey, good, thanks. Yeah, one thing that was a little, can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great, okay. One thing that was a little bit of a unexpected benefit I really hadn't planned on is we attended the literacy group. We attended the Parent Resource Fair, and along with Building Healthy Families representatives, and we had ordered our literacy bags, our reusable, our bags that we give kids, and they put their library books in them, and we gave out 133 bags over the course of about a day and a half. So that was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't planning on that. Very well received by the public, and that's the Parent Resource Fair is when parents bring their kids in to register for school. So we were able to tap that group, that 0 to 6 group, and with families coming in, and then we gave out the bags for the kids, you know, the siblings, the 0 to 6-year-olds. That was kind of a pleasant surprise. We were happy about that.
That's great. That's great. Nice, Jim. Thanks. All right. What else we have going on, folks?
This is Elisa again from SMART, and this is our organizational time, so not a lot has actually been done as far as in-site reading, but we're really excited because all 3 sites we're trying to serve, we have people in place and volunteers in place ready to begin in early October.
That's awesome. Wonderful.
Hi, Brett. This is Lindsay with the Lane County Early Learning Alliance.
Hey, Lindsay.
And we just got our numbers from our summer reading spots, and we had over 500 kids and just over 2,000 books that were given away. So we're really excited to kind of get the data from that program. And then this last week, we kicked off our Raising a Reader training with our family resource centers. So each of the family resource centers throughout the county will be implementing a book bag rotation with parents and families. So a lot of people are really excited about getting that kicked off.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great. Well, thank you. Thanks to the 3 of you for sharing those things. I know that there are a lot of other great things that are in the works right now, and that maybe folks are feeling shy. It's okay. But please do feel free, either on these calls that we have together, or just by email. If you have something that you want to share with me or with our whole group that is really exciting for you, please feel free to do that. I love getting those emails from people when they say, oh, here's some pictures, or here are some things that we've been working on that we're really excited about. That's good stuff for me sitting here in Salem. So please keep those coming. Okay, so this is just a very high-level overview of what the initial output and activity reports show us from what happened in the first few months of the grant. So basically what I've done here is, as you can see, I've broken this out by activity type, the numbers of activities taking place, and the number of adults and children participants who are impacted. So, along the top 2 rows, we see the number of provider trainings and parent and caregiver workshops that were conducted over the summer, as well as the number of adult participants. And, one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind when we're looking at numbers like this is you know, it can sometimes be hard to tell, you know, what does a number mean? But when you think about the number, if you think about 125 providers participated in professional development around early literacy, how many kids are those providers going to be working with this year? How many kids are they going to be working with next year and the year after that? I think that one of the things we need to keep in mind with the adult capacity building components of this is that to the extent that the professional development is high quality and people are able to receive ongoing training, there's a real, multiplier effect here. Those 125 providers have the opportunity to touch and impact and reach who knows how many hundreds, thousands of children over the course of the years. And not to say that, one professional development training or workshop is going to be the end-all, be-all transformational moment in somebody's career and life and the way that they do early literacy work with children, but it is absolutely part of the process. So I was really encouraged when I saw these numbers come through. I'm also really excited about the numbers that we see around the story times. So just, for the sake of making sure that we're all on the same page, for the purposes of this reporting, I'm basically using the term story time as a catch-all for adult-child literacy interactions. So when both the parent and the child are there and there's some type of literacy interaction happening. I know that there are specific story times that happen at libraries and then other types of activities as well. But this is great, 1,500 plus children or 1,500 plus adults and, upwards of 4,000 child participants in those types of interactions with either a parent or an adult caregiver. That's really awesome. And the numbers on book and literacy kit distribution are just, I was excited to see that. There's a lot happening there already. And then the other thing I did that was not right in the report that you all filled out is there are a few of you that are that have Reach Out and Read as part of your work. So Reach Out and Read, for those who aren't familiar, is a literacy program that engages primary care physicians in sharing books and literacy information with children as part of their well child visits. And I think in the first activity and output report, those got categorized as either trainings or story times, or they don't really fit nicely into one of the buckets. So where I could, I pulled those out and did them separately, and I believe that the numbers that you see here come from the Reach Out and Read work that has happened in Marion County, and that these numbers actually come from the Reach Out and Read program itself. So one of the things that we'll need to do going forward is make sure that we have a way for you all to tease out those Reach Out and Read one-on-one consultations for those of you that are involved in that work. So, one of the things that that you may remember is that when these grants were first awarded, based on the cumulative effect of your proposals that you had submitted to us, it looked as though, and we said publicly, we think that through these projects, we can reach and impact 60,000 children between the ages of 0 to 6 in Oregon over the course of 1 year, which is a really lofty goal. But as you can see, in the first, roughly quarter, we've hit a number of 15,000. So that tells us that we're on track to hit that 60, and that's something that you all probably aren't going to, worry about too much, and I don't want you to. That's something that I'll keep in my mind. So part of that number, keeping in mind what do we need to be thinking about in terms of breadth and how far and wide we're going to reach children, and how deep do we need to be going with each of our strategies and each of our interventions. And that's going to look a little bit different from place to place, and some of the program evaluation stuff that we'll talk about in a bit will speak to that a little bit. But all that to say, for the first few months out of the gate with this grant, I'm really encouraged by these numbers. So before I go on, what thoughts, questions, or comments do you all have about what you see here?
Hi, Brett, this is Julie. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, hi, Julie. I can hear you great.
Okay, I had to phone in because the computer, I couldn't get audio through my speaker on the computer, but numbers are great. We just started kicking off, oh boy, this is echoing back here. Do you guys hear echo?
I'm not hearing an echo.
Oh, good, okay. There we go. We just kicked off, I didn't get to share, but I don't want to interrupt your flow here, but we just kicked off our trainings for Language is the Key. I just wanted to throw that out there. When you're looking, the activity data and provider trainings, it'd be kind of cool to know what literacy programs folks are using and which ones they're feeling really good about. Maybe that's coming up later, I don't know, but we kicked off our first provider training. We had 20 providers show up, which was very exciting to learn how to utilize Language as the Key curriculum. And in the response to this grant in Lincoln County, we are connecting with the home visiting program. We just ordered $1,000 worth of books for them to distribute to parents with babies first time, and really push the importance of starting to read, at a very young age, like the Reach Out and Read with Primary Care Physicians program. And our home visiting team works really closely with the physicians and the pediatricians. So that's been a really neat partnership there. And then we're starting this week our parenting classes and our parent cafes. I don't know if anyone else has the parent cafe grant, but within all of those classes, we're weaving in literacy. We're using social emotional books to help teach a lot of the concepts from nurturing parenting. In the parenting classes, then parents go home with those books and to help build home libraries and share books with children. But the neat thing is with the parenting classes, the children's component and the kid cafe component that aligns with these parent cafes, so that children are learning leadership skills and social emotional skills through literature, and they're getting a copy of the book to take home as well. So I just thought it'd be kind of neat to know what this is a really nice summary of numbers so far, but it'd be kind of neat to know what programs people are utilizing and what curriculum people are really impressed with.
Yeah, that's a great point, Julie, and thanks for sharing what you're doing. That sounds like cool work. I'm familiar with the Parent Cafe work, and I am excited about that work as potentially being foundational to really building out strong parent engagement strategies that are associated with literacy and kindergarten readiness and all that good stuff. I think one of the things that I can do going forward is we can request information about what programs specifically people are using. I do think you're bringing up a really good point that part of the evaluative work that we all probably want to do together is which training programs seem to be worth continuing to invest in, and which ones are people happy with, and which ones are people maybe not so excited about. So that's something that we'll definitely work on teasing out over the course of the year. So I'm going to move us ahead because I want to get to Aaron's presentation, which is really cool. So the other piece from the output activity report is, I asked some open-ended questions, and you guys were really great about sharing your thoughts. So I wanted to just put together a really quick summary of what my sort of key takeaways were and key challenges that people raised. The first one is that many of you used the summertime as a planning period, a ramp-up period, purchasing supplies, putting collaborations in place, all of that. And so there were a lot of comments around people feeling like maybe they didn't accomplish a whole lot, but based on what the numbers show us and based on what you all said, there's already a lot happening. So you all definitely need to give yourselves a pat on the back. If it feels like the work is getting off to maybe a bit of a slow start, I am personally very happy with the pace of where things are up to this point, and we know that pace will obviously pick up over the course of the next several months. And it also sounds like there's a lot of excitement about the work in your communities throughout the state, just based on different comments that people are making. So that's really encouraging. Some challenges that I think that we need to work through. One of the things that people expressed pretty consistently was difficulty connecting with families and partner organizations during the summertime. Summer is just tough. People are on vacation and not always thinking about school type stuff, and it is what it is. I expect that to change over the course of the next period here. There were also, one of the other themes that emerged was around staffing and staffing up in some cases, interagency collaboration and communication. Just, nothing glaring, but just the usual pieces of, collaboration is important. It's how we do our work. It makes the work better, and it makes outcomes for kids better. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we'd like it to. So again, nothing, no alarm bells or anything, just, the usual stuff. I want to interject here and just say, if you feel like you are having real difficulty, that you need help troubleshooting and problem solving in terms of collaborating with some of the partners that you built into your grant proposal, and if you're feeling stuck, please let me know, and I'll be happy to do what I can to help you problem solve that and figure out what the best path forward is. And then the last thing, kind of more specifically, is that for those working on Reach Out and Read, there were some comments about some difficulty implementing Reach Out and Read. And just so everybody knows, I think that that program, which is housed in the Oregon Pediatric Society, is at a really kind of interesting place in its development, and feeling like they want to expand their reach and not necessarily having the staffing capacity to be able to do that. They have recently received some additional support from the funding community, specifically the Oregon Community Foundation, and the funders and our office and some folks through the health authority that are connected to the Pediatric Society, will continue to work with them. We all think that this is a really good model and a really promising model, and we want to figure out how to work through any implementation challenges. So for those of you that are working on Reach Out and Read, if you are having challenges getting things off the ground and could use some support from our end, please let me know. So with that, I want to hand it over to Erin Richards from Umatilla Moro Head Start to share about their learning picnics and traveling preschool. So I'll be driving the slides, and Erin will be guiding me through. Erin, are you out there and ready to go?
I am, and can you hear me well enough?
I sure can.
Okay, great. Well, then I'll get started. Thank you for letting me be the first one to do this. I am so excited, and all of our facilitators have been really excited about our learning picnics as a way of, getting early literacy out there to our families in our 3 counties. So we cover Union, Umatilla, and Morrow County. The next slide will kind of show you that division of thank you. So what we are doing is, they're called learning picnics. So we are hosting learning picnics in 3 counties, and actually from the handout that you'd sent earlier, it said 6 six-week sessions. We're doing 6 six-week sessions in each of the 3 counties. So we will end up doing 18 before this is all said and done. We have just finished doing 6 sessions in those counties. We did 1 of the 6-week sessions in Union County, we did 4 in Umatilla County, and we did 1 in Morrow County, and we're getting them lined up to start a new group of 6 sessions. So on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about them and what we're doing and what our focus is. So we are focusing on the 6 pre-literacy skills for each of the 6 picnics. So the first one is let's talk, and so we really focus on vocabulary in all areas or all ages. That covers the 0 to 6. And then our second one, we really focus on begin with books. So we kind of center that picnic around print motivation. The next one is about telling tales, and so the focus is narrative skills. Then on to sounds good, and that's the phonological awareness. Then exploring print, and that's print awareness, and that really does get into the books. And then learning about letters, and that's the alphabet knowledge. So we've gotten each of these lessons or these picnics is really broken down into a usable task for parents, and it's really all about making it fun. So that's even why, we've kind of changed the names of those pre-literacy skills into, real fun topics. So on the next slide, you'll see actually one of the picnics. And this is kind of what it looks like. This is one of them this summer. So here we have parents with kids, and they're playing, and they're having extended vocabulary, and we put Mom in the driver's seat. She's the teacher. Are you there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, there. My screen went blank. Sorry. So this is really in alignment with the Oregon Parenting Education Collaborative, those of you that are involved with that, the OPEC, and we say, parents are the child's first and most important teacher. So we honor that through every one of these picnics and put the parent as the teacher and just help them along. Something truly magical happens when we do this with parents, and I wouldn't have known it to be that true, and I wouldn't get so excited about it if I hadn't actually seen it. Even by saying those words to the parents, something happens, and they take on that role, and it becomes really, really important. They sit and have these conversations with their children and take on the role as teacher. So on the next slide, I'll kind of tell you how we got it started. The first thing we did was we knew we needed to have a facilitator training. So we put together on June 30th a training that lasted from 9 to 3:30. We provided lunch. We had 43 people come that wanted to be trained as facilitators. And we had an expert come in. And if you guys needed contact information on her, she's absolutely wonderful. Her name is Lori Danahy, and she's an early childhood consultant expert. She works with programs, schools, teachers, caregivers, and families. And she was with the Oregon Department of Education for 7 years as an Oregon Head Start pre-K specialist. So our first hour was really an overview, and she gave examples of strategies that support those 6 key literacy skills. And then we spent over an hour with her presenting developmentally appropriate approaches to building, the alphabet knowledge and letter, sound associations. Then we broke into a 2-hour session of actually working with all of the materials that we were going to have at each of these picnics. So everybody got a hands-on, and they practiced how would you talk to the children, how would you talk to parents. And then we had a 30-minute planning our picnics. Lori also developed for us, and we've been using them, our parent handouts that we send home with each of the parents on what to do to continue what they've done at the picnic, continue that at home. So our next slide shows one of the ways that we promoted these picnics and to get the word out. We developed a postcard, and we actually had these mailed out to all of our families. We had them set at libraries. We gave them to our WIC people, our Parks and Rec. We also sent one to local newspapers just to get the word out. This is just an example of one of them. We had 2 in Hermiston, so these went to all people in Hermiston, but we also sent the same one with the logistics changed, of course, for all of the others. But we wanted to make it exciting. Next slide. So what it looks like. If you came to one of our learning picnics this summer, we had them all outside, and we picked locations where they had the summer lunch program so that people after one of our learning picnics, families could go straight in for the lunch program. Again, we say parents are their child's first and most important teacher. As parents came in, we had 3 facilitators per picnic. And I keep calling it playing with a purpose, and that's how I would describe it to parents when they wanted to know what's going on. It's just, purposeful play or playing with a purpose with your child. So when you came to one of our picnics, we would have 6 big rugs, just like a blanket at a picnic, set up around a grassy area. So it was really casual. Each of these centers had a focus, and we had an art area, we had a block area, a dramatic play area, manipulatives, music, and then a literacy book story time area. One of the things that we did find, if you know about the area that we are in, that Umatilla Moro's in, is it does get very hot. We did have some comments on our evaluations that some days it was pretty hot, and parents with younger children maybe didn't stay a full 2.5 hours. Our time schedule was 9 to 11:30, and some would take some babies and toddlers home a little bit early. So our next slide shows you our art area. And again, on this, we really focused on art and not craft. So there would be modeling done here from the facilitators on the types of questions to ask their kids as they were painting or putting together other art projects. The next area that you would find parents and children would be the blocks and the manipulatives. And again, this is where we really encourage extended talk, what types of questions to ask. And this area was really popular and comfortable for the parents. Our next center was the dramatic play, and of course this is where kids really love to play. This might start off with reading a book as the children acted out. And it really did support the retelling of a story, their memory, and sequencing. The next area would be story time. We really did promote facilitators taking time at the very beginning or at the very end, and ideally really both, is to actually model how to read a book to children. A lot of parents really sometimes just don't know the best way to do it. So we really encourage our facilitators to concentrate on modeling and facilitating rather than teaching, and again, to put parents in that teaching role. When we ended with story time, it really was a good time for the other facilitators to talk with parents about what to do at home, give them their handout, and then we had evaluations, so that would be a good time to do evaluations. And then our music center, which admittedly this was our weakest center, and we're going to be working on making some changes with this one. It was really great though, watching kids with music. You can see in the picture that's a big parachute, doing things with the parachute with rhythm. But again, we want to do a little more work on our music. And then the highlight, of course, since we're talking about literacy, is books. Every child that came to a picnic, so each time they came, they got to pick a free book, a brand new book to take home. Everything that we gave out, whether it was handouts or books, was either in Spanish or English. So we were really honoring home language, so they got to pick out their book. From our evaluations, we did get the response that parents were reading more at home. So we were really happy about that. And the next slide kind of talks a little about these wonderful, wonderful parent handouts that Lori Danahy developed for us. And this, on these slides, it just gives you a little bit of the information that was on each of these parent handouts. So at each picnic, the first picnic we had really talked about vocabulary. That was the information they went home with, of course, in much greater detail, activities to do, materials, how to talk, and even real examples of how to ask questions, how to use big words. and the same with print motivation. And then the next grouping was narrative skills. This one, even during the picnic, this is all about the telling tales, how to do this with playing with your kids with the blocks and manipulatives during dramatic play, and the same with phonological awareness. This, actually, the Music Center was a great spot to encourage this type of thing, and the manipulatives with the animals and sounds. So we have these handouts, and we're really intertwining them with every one of the picnics. And then our last grouping was the print awareness and exploring print, getting parents to dictate what their child is saying, just sitting with them in conversations. And the alphabet knowledge, of course, we had puzzles, looking for the first letter of their name or mom's name or dad's name. So again, and I would be happy to make these available, these handouts. They're really invaluable, and they are, these handouts too were what facilitators used as a basis for how they were going to plan each of the picnics. And moving on to a really great picture that lets you see what was happening in action. It's really about helping parents play with a purpose, having the facilitators model how to do that. During our evaluation process, some of the parents we found really wanted the facilitator to do everything. And a lot of that was just because they didn't know what to do. So it really took some cheerleading and some encouraging on the facilitator's part to get parents involved. But once that happened, it was really great to see. Now, on to our evaluation piece. This is how we opened up the evaluation that we gave to parents. And again, we talk about them being the most important teacher. We thank them for coming and let them know we really want their input. It was hard coming up with an evaluation, and I'll be really anxious to hear how the rest of you literacy backbone champions did your evaluation. We did a retrospective, and you can kind of see, if you go to the next slide, how we set that up. Yeah. So on the bottom, you'll see in the orange that was how they kind of ranked. They did, what were you doing now that you've experienced these learning picnics? And we asked a lot of questions on that, like how many times do you read to your child at home? How many times do you talk about stories? So we have quite a few questions that would go underneath that, and then they would rank how often they did that after experiencing the learning picnics. Then we asked them to fold that and answer the same questions as to before they experienced learning picnics. How often have they done those things? Again, it's going to the library, reading to their kids, having extended conversations. We do find that the retrospective evaluation does help, because a lot of times if we just did what you're doing now or after the picnics, a lot of times parents don't know what they didn't know. So this really gives them some thought about what they did after learning some things from the learning picnic and really what they had done before. So, and in closing, some results of our first round of picnics is we served over 400 children. We gave out over 400 books. Over 220 parents or caregivers attended, involved in these 6 series of 6-week sessions. We had 17 trained facilitators lead the picnics. And we found that parents and child care providers are really reading more often to their kids as a result of it. So we are really excited to get started on our next set and finish 12 more series.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing that. What questions or comments do folks have about the learning picnics? Do you see anything in here that Erin shared that connects to the work that you're doing in your own community?
Yeah, hi, this is Jim again.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really strong public library story time program. I work a lot with the children's librarian, and story times three times a week. A lot of the same types of activities, especially getting the parents involved. And we have a pretty good turnout. And the library is a good base. And then we're right next to a park, so we have outside, especially during the summer. We had a summer reading program at a school that I had. And then also the free lunch, and all of that is really, like what you said, it meshes well together where you can do multiple activities. But I really see the parent engagement is key, and that's good to see. I think we're doing a lot of the same things to accomplish that.
That's great, Jim. Thanks for sharing that. I think, you know, when I've had a chance to hear Erin describe the learning picnics a couple times now, and I think a couple things that really strike me in terms of just being such a smart strategy is taking the work to where families are. I mean, that's always such a big thing. You know, for those of you who don't know, my background is on the K-12 side and working in family engagement. And one of the things that, you know, we always heard from schools was, we do these events, but parents don't come. So our first thing was, you know, to sort of gently say, well, maybe you need to do the event where the parents are instead of assuming that they're going to come to where you are. And I think that that's just the way that these are designed to do that, to get out into the communities, is so smart. And the other thing that I just love about this is that it's about books, and it's about reading, and it's about literacy, but it's also about play, and it's also about parenting, and it's also about brain development, and, you know, it's this really comprehensive approach that's simple and fun. And I think that, you know, this is just such to me, such an awesome example of what cool early literacy work looks like. And it's fun to hear about. I'm maybe a little bit too excited here. What else would folks like to share or hear about or reflect on in relation to the learning picnics?
Hey, Brett, this is Michelle from Yamhill. And as I was listening to the presentation, it really struck me how it is so nicely well-rounded and offering so many different opportunities for parents or caregivers to interact with the child in so many different ways. We did extended public school library times during our summer feeding program, and so I liked how they had paired it up with summer feeding. I think that that's a great opportunity to reach some of our more vulnerable families. But I think if we were to do it again, I mean, we had story times and kids could come in and read books and they took books home. But if we were to do it again, I'd really like to see them incorporate some of these other activities. So I just think it's a really nice model.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Other thoughts and questions before we jump into talking about budget and program evaluation, which is maybe a little bit less fun than the learning picnics? Okay. Well, thank you, Erin. Really appreciate you taking the time to share that. And if you wouldn't mind, if you're able to email me resources that you have that I can just get out to everybody, you know, certainly those the information for parents to take home, I think is valuable just across the board. And anything else you have that you want to share, please just send it my way, and I'll share it with folks.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that, Brett.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay.
Hey, we haven't got.
Okay, so we're going to jump back in and do some nuts and bolts things here. So kind of, I know I'm jumping around here a little bit. I think I actually had meant to share this slide before Erin's presentation, so forgive me if this feels like we're kind of going backwards. So going back to the reporting piece, there are a few next steps that we need to be aware of. The next output activity report will be due in October, and I think I had originally said early October. I'm going to see how far back in the month I can push that to give you all a little bit more time. I know that by the end of the month, we'll have to have something for the purposes of the ODE Strategic Investment Legislative Report that's being put together. And a couple things that we need to be aware of for this next reporting cycle. As I mentioned before, figuring out how to capture the consultations, the one-on-one consultations that are happening as part of the Reach Out and Read program will be important, and I think that's probably a relatively easy fix. And then the piece that's maybe a little bit more challenging is we are being asked to capture demographic information on the children that are being served. And I didn't know that was going to be something that we would be asked for the first set of activity and outputs. But it is something that we're going to have to deal with. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is instead of requiring you all to keep a, individual head count of every child that, you or your partners interact with, I think what we might do is try to capture percentages, approximate percentages. And really what we're talking about in terms of demographic information is that the department is primarily concerned with racial and ethnic identity information. And the categories for capturing that would be the same as what are used in the K-12 system. And so those are the same categories that are part of the kindergarten assessment reporting. They are not sufficient to capture the diversity that exists within our state, and they don't tell us anything about socioeconomic status or a whole host of other areas of information that will be valuable to help us understand who the children are. But this is what is being asked for all of the strategic investments that are part of this investment package that we're involved in. So it's something that we're going to have to grapple with a little bit. And I'm going to try to make it as easy on you from a process standpoint as possible. The other thing is, and this is more to come on this, but for those of you that are early learning hubs, the format for the activity and output reporting may change. None of the information will change. We're still going to look to capture all of the same information, but one of the things that we've heard from early learning hubs is we have all of these different funding streams, grants and contracts. They all have different reporting timelines and reporting processes. Can we streamline that, please? So that's something that we're working on, and by the time we get to the October report, we may be asking you to provide the information to us on this grant in a little bit of a different way than what we did the last time around. For those of you that are not early learning hubs, we'll continue to use the Google Doc. So for those of you that are, not that you're not part of a hub, but that the grantee is not the hub, nothing about the format and process will change immediately. And I'll just say I appreciate your patience and flexibility with this. I'll let you know more as I know more. And I think that's it for now. Any questions on that information in terms of next steps for reporting? Okay. So the other piece of reporting is program evaluation, and this is something that is, as I've mentioned, is going to be just so important for our work. And Aaron, I'm really glad that you shared what you're doing around program evaluation for the learning picnics. So, just to sort of reset why we're doing this, the activity and output reports basically tell us what we did. What happened during the reporting period, how grant funds, what were grant funds used to do, and what activities were implemented, and who was involved in those activities. But it doesn't tell us really much about what was accomplished. So the purpose of the program evaluation component is to tell us a little bit more about what's accomplished. And in thinking about some of the short-term outcomes that we can affect, really what we're talking about are changes in behavior, beliefs, and attitude. So are families reading more, families and caregivers reading more with children as a result? Are people accessing the library more as a result? Are there more books in the home as a result? Do parents feel more confident in their ability to read with their children? Do parents see themselves as their child's first and most important teacher? Those types of things that that rely a lot, frankly, on self-reports, but still give us a depth of data and information that we don't have just through the output and activity reports. And this information is also really important in terms of helping us tell a shared story about what's happening. I think there is a lot of excitement and interest and just support for early literacy in our state right now. And I think if we can do a good job of telling a shared story, that folks in the legislature and around the state will be excited to continue to support this work. I don't have any inside information or anything like that. I don't, do a whole lot of work on that side of the equation here in Salem, but that's the sense that I get. Okay, before we get to budget, I do want to share a couple program evaluation resources that have been shared with me. How do I do this? Let's share my desktop. Just to give you a sense of the types of tools that are out there, and if you're struggling with figuring out what tool to use, that's something that I'm happy to help you figure out, whether that's an existing tool or whether that's something we work on together to create. But regardless of what tool you're using, there are going to be some themes that we need to be working towards and making sure that we're able to ultimately take all of the information from your various program evaluation tools and aggregate them and roll them up into something that is concise and able to be consumed by people who are outside of the work that we're doing. So the first one I want to share, a lot of you are involved in some way or another with the Every Child Ready to Read program. So this is a survey tool that was shared with me by Marion Bauer from Oregon Coast Community Action, ORCA, down in the Coos Curry area, that aligns with the Every Child Ready to Read program. So you can see, up top we're capturing some basic information about parent, provider, and children. And then down here what we see is a pretty simple scale that asks some questions about attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that we're trying to affect, and whether or not participating in Every Child Ready to Read had an impact on these attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. One of the things that you heard Aaron talk about was kind of how and when to do this type of survey, and I think we've probably talked about this in the past, that there is value in doing a pre-post model. And what I hear people talking about more is what's often referred to as a retrospective pre-post. So you're basically just giving them the survey after they've participated in the program, but then asking them to think about where they were when they started the program. Okay, so another tool that I want to share, this comes from Wallowa County. This is really this is a really simple tool, which I like as part of the Building Healthy Families program. So it's basically going to ask the adult, what program that you participated in, and some really simple yes or no questions. Do you have more access to books? Are you reading more? Do you feel better about the quality of these reading actions? I mean, these questions get to exactly the types of things that we are trying to affect with this grant. And it's really simple and really straightforward. And, again, it's relying on participant self-reporting here. So is this data, the type of data that's going to hold up in the court of, academic opinion in academic journals and things like that? Probably not, but that's okay. That's not what we need it for. What we need to know is what do the people that are participating in our programs, how do they think and how do they feel about how their participation has impacted what it is that they're doing with their child's early literacy development or the children who are within their care. And then the last one that I'll share with you just real quickly, this builds on what Aaron just shared with us. This is the tool, and this one's a little bit more in-depth. So this front side, or this first page, and let me get this a little bit bigger for you if I can. Oh, darn. I don't know if I can do that right now. Zoom. Here we go. Okay, so maybe a little bit easier to see now. So, asking some kind of high-level information about the learning picnics, and this is information that's probably more valuable to you at the program level. It helps you improve upon the quality of the work that you're doing. Here we're getting into demographic information and other types of information that again will help you at the community level. And then on this second page, this gets to that retrospective pre-post piece. So it's asking the participant to basically compare how they feel, what they do, and what they think now versus before participating in the program. So, with each of these tools that we've looked at just very quickly, you see some themes emerging. You see things like how often are adults reading with children? Are they accessing books in libraries? How do people feel about their own sense of self-efficacy to help their children become readers? Things like that. So it doesn't matter to me so much what the specific wording of a question is or something like that, or what scale you use or what tool you use, but just that you are using a tool to capture that information and that we're creating a process to share that information back with me so that I can then aggregate it up. And I think the other piece that's really important here is thinking about the life cycle of the programs and strategies that you're putting into place. So for the purpose of a 6-week learning picnic, capturing that information after that 6-week series is up makes a lot of sense. If you're doing something else that's more of a longer-term intervention or strategy, you want to think about what's the appropriate interval and frequency to be capturing information about, that's going to tell us whether or not we've achieved our goals and to what extent we've been able to accomplish some of these short-term outcomes that we're driving towards. So with all of that said, what are your thoughts and questions about the program evaluation component? What do you think some of the challenges are going to be? What's missing? What else do you need? You guys are super quiet today, so I'm not exactly sure. Shucks, where'd I go here? I'm not exactly sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but needless to say, we will I'll definitely be doing a lot of follow-up on the program evaluation piece as part of site visits and individual calls and all that stuff. Sounds like there's maybe a question?
Hi, this is Julie Buck again in Lincoln County, and we just had this discussion yesterday about evaluation within our hub, our three-county hub, Lynn, Benton, Lincoln hub, trying to use an evaluation between our three counties that was the same. And we were looking at the parenting ladder that we use in our parenting program and adding to that the literacy component and some of the pieces that were on these evaluations that you shared to capture the data for the state and for each other, and also to see if it results in improvement in the kindergarten readiness assessment and all that good stuff. So do you want us to try to move forward to create that evaluation and then maybe share with everybody, or should we look towards using one of these that you've shared?
Well, a couple thoughts. One is that if I'm not mistaken, and Aaron, feel free to jump in here, I believe that the Learning Picnic evaluation is adapted from the parenting skills ladder. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes, I had contacted our funders at Oregon State for the Oregon Parenting Education Collaborative and said, we have this grant, we're so excited about it, but you need to come up with an evaluation. So they, kind of did a little bit of digging on evaluations that they had used specifically for literacy. So they sent one, and it was really, really long, and it was old. It was one that they hadn't used, but they dug it up. So we did do some adaptations to it. I still see that we need to do some tweaking on that evaluation. If you looked at that, that scaling that we used is really quite long, and our families really didn't want to spend that much time on it. So I really, before we do 12 more series, want to sit down and go over that, the scaling, like never, then it's the 1 to 2 times per month, 1 to 2 times per week, 3 to 4 per week, or 5 times per week. That really could be scaled down and simplified, and even shorten the number of those activity questions. So we have some tweaking to do on this.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. So
I'm sorry, Julie Buck again. It's not, it doesn't look like the parenting ladder. So you didn't augment the parenting skills ladder?
No, because it really didn't fit. Yeah, because we did look at that and thought, that would be so great, but when we went through it, it just really did not fit.
Yeah, I think they've offered, and I'll clarify, but Oregon Community Foundation folks and Denise Rennenkamp has said that we could use that and then add the components we need, because it does talk a lot about parenting attitudes and beliefs and change, but I don't know.
So, Julie, I think, for our purposes, I think what will be important, whether or not you and your partners locally choose to go down this path of augmenting that existing tool or not, I think what will be important for the purposes of this grant is pulling out the pieces of information that speak specifically to attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors around early literacy. So not beliefs, attitudes, behaviors around parenting in general that a broader tool may speak to. Those may be, those are valuable pieces of information for you and your partners locally and for other pieces of the work. And certainly there is an intersection between parenting and early literacy. I totally get that. But just in terms of being able to tell sort of a clear, concise story and making sure that the types of information that we're gathering across projects and across grant sites is compatible. I think the ones that I would be most interested in, the types of data that I would be most interested in getting will be those that were literacy specific. So I think that if it makes sense for you to go that direction locally, I think that's totally fine. And just know that there are going to be certain pieces of that are going to be very interesting to me for the purposes of the grant evaluation, and other pieces that will be more valuable to you locally and probably less so to me.
That makes perfect sense. Yes, I agree.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it open for now for other questions or comments around evaluation. But one question that I have for you all around evaluation is, many of you are targeting Spanish-speaking providers, parents, and children. Does anybody have an existing evaluation tool in Spanish that has been vetted, where the translation has been vetted, so that the quality of the translation is good, and so that it is cleared the bar of being culturally appropriate as well, so that it's not just taking an English translation, and sort of verbatim translating it into English. Does anybody have a good Spanish tool for evaluation around literacy? Because I don't think that I have access to one right now. Has anybody thought about how to capture information from Spanish-speaking participants?
Brett, this is Erin.
Mm-hmm.
Ours, of course, is we give it in English and Spanish, but your question's really fair. We have a staff member that does all of our translation, and of course she is very qualified to do it appropriately, and certainly culturally appropriate, but I wouldn't say it's vetted.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess what let me walk back my vetting comment just a little bit. What I'm thinking about is there somebody that you work with that is a native Spanish speaker, or is bilingual or bicultural, that can say, yeah, I think we're phrasing these questions and the language in this in a way that is accessible to our families, and that it's not, overly formalized language or, strange translations or things like that. If you have local capacity to do that, I think that's totally fine. I'm not, not talking about something that's, beyond that. Well, in any event, if you have Spanish language evaluation materials, please share them with me, because I would love to be able to share those more broadly within our grant cohort here. We have about 20 minutes left and a few other things to get to. Last questions, comments on program evaluation at this point. Okay. So quick budget check-in. If you have not drawn down funds, and I think that there are some that haven't, please do so as soon as you can. One of the things that the legislature and others will look at is, how are these funds used? And if we leave dollars on the table, even in the interim period, it does raise eyebrows around, well, you guys have said that this is so important, and we know how important early literacy work is. Why aren't people using the money? So if you're sitting on funds in EGMs, please go ahead and do a drawdown as soon as you can. And along those lines, please, if you haven't already completed one of the budget reports, please do that as soon as possible. The first one of those will be due by September 30th. And basically what that is, just, so we're not making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be, is that's really just an internal sort of quality control check between me and you to make sure that you're accessing funds and that it looks like, you know, things are in place with your budget and moving in a good direction. If you need to make adjustments to your budget, or if you anticipate not being able to spend all of your grant funds at any point, please let me know so that we can have that conversation and figure it out. It would be not ideal if we get to, you know, kind of the late spring and all of a sudden you're, you know, find yourself sitting on this lump of cash that you don't know how you're going to spend, which I know is not usually a problem in our line of work. You know, the problem of having too much money is not something that we typically encounter in education and early childhood and human services in general. But if you happen to find yourself there or anticipate being there, please let me know so that we can problem solve and figure out what to do. Questions about the budget report? And by budget report, I'm talking about the Google Sheets that I prepared for everybody a few weeks back. Okay, great. As questions arise, please let me know. Thanks to those who have jumped in there and taken the time to do that. I know it's a little bit funny with the 3 separate funding streams. And there have been some questions about that, but I think for the most part, people are working through that. And again, something I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with if you want to, or about if you want to. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. Do we just email our budget report to you? Or do we also send it to the state, somebody else, or?
No, doesn't have to go to anybody else, just me.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great.
Yeah, so Julie, this is the one that was in the Google Doc that I think you were, if I remember correctly, you were having a hard time with. So refresh my memory, did we set that up in an Excel sheet for you?
Yeah, and I actually, yeah, we're supposed to get Google Docs here at the county, but I can access them from home, so I can get it back to you in that Google Doc form.
Okay. Yeah, so the nice thing about that Google Doc format is that it's a shared document. So once you update it, you don't actually have to send me anything. I'll be able to just go in and see the updates that you made. And it will tell me when I go in there which ones have been updated. So it's really simple as far as that goes. But if you have questions or concerns, feel free to email or call me about it, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so a couple things left to touch on before we wrap up. I am going to be starting to do site visits here pretty soon, and sort of, I want to think of these site visits as somewhat formalized kind of protocol or agenda, but not overly prescriptive, because I think each one is obviously going to look a little bit different in each community and based on where you are with your work. But I do want to go into them with some clear goals to accomplish, so that so that it can be a good use of your time and a good use of my time as well, and so that we can help move the work forward. So what you see here are the high-level pieces that I think are important that we address in some form or fashion on the site visit. So that's really looking at your work plan and projecting out what's going to happen over the course of the next several months and through the grant period, and thinking about, really thinking through, are you going to be able to do the activities that are in your grant agreement? And hopefully, are you going to be able to, go even above and beyond what's in the grant agreement? But if it looks like there are going to be challenges doing, accomplishing the activities that are built into the grant agreement, or thinking about your original proposal and what you would set out to do, how do we shift course? How do we figure out how to break through any barriers? How do we refocus? All of those things. Budget review. So again, this is just making sure that it looks like you're on track with spending, that you're not going to get caught in a situation where you don't have enough funds, or you know, the opposite, like we were just talking about, that you're going to have, you know, this huge lump of money left over that you don't know what to do with, things like that. Evaluation planning, so that's really a continuation of the conversation we were just having, and really what I would want to do at that time is get really specific about which tools you're using, what the interval is and the frequency is, and then how that information will get shared back with me so that I can then aggregate it. This next one, planning for the transition to the next biennium. So as you all know, we are in the process of putting early learning hubs in place all over the state. So there are 6 from round 1, another 8 from round 2 that are in various stages of contract negotiation, and we'll see those hubs starting to come online here pretty soon. Again, we don't know what this is all going to look like a year from now. I think that there is excitement and interest in continuing to invest in early literacy, and you know, my best guess at this point is that those funds will go through early learning hubs. Not going to promise that that's how it's going to play out. You know, we have to see what happens. But you know, for those of you that are doing this work through your hub right now, it's about thinking about, okay, how do we build on this? How do we build out what's already happening? Where do we want to focus, et cetera? And for those of you who are funded through a partner organization that will then work with an early learning hub, the conversation is a little bit different, and it's really about how do we figure out how to transition this work to the hub and what pieces are most important to transition to the hub and all of those questions. But that's something that I think that the more we think about now, the better off we're going to be when we get to next summer. Troubleshooting and problem solving, that's, you know, going back to some of the comments earlier about challenges communicating with partners or something along those lines. You know, this really sort of those specific challenges and issues you may be having, and, you know, just sort of thinking through how do we resolve these. And then if possible, to the extent that I'm able to observe grant-related activities, that's both fun for me, and it helps make the work that you're doing more real. It helps me be able to tell the story better. It helps me understand, you know, what it looks like on the ground level. It helps identify what are the really promising practices that are out there. I mean, there's so much value there. I know that that's not always going to be possible, and I am not, you know, asking that you all, you know, go out of your way or do something outside of your normal planning or anything like that. But if it happens to work, that you know, that I will be meeting with you in your site at a time when it's viable for you and for me to do some observation of things that are in place, whether that's, you know, PD or story time or whatever it is. I would love to do that. And along those lines, please feel free to put me to work. I'm happy to help however I can, whether that's, you know, reading books or handing out books or literacy kits or just helping with some nuts and bolts of a professional development. I mean, if I'm out in your community, you can consider me part of your team that can do work. I don't want to just be a you know, lump on a log sitting and watching work happen and not help. So all things to think about with site visits that are coming up. So with that in mind, I have some things that are on my calendar that are starting to fall into place. So this is what my upcoming travel schedule around the state looks like over the course of the next several weeks, and I would really love to use these days and times as opportunities to connect with you all if possible, particularly those of you that are on the east side of the Cascades, which, you know, is obviously harder for me to get to. I know, you know, winter's coming, and that'll take make it more difficult anyways for a couple months to be traveling back and forth. But a couple of things that I just want to highlight here. On October 2nd, I'm going to be in Ontario for a launch event that's associated with the statewide literacy campaign. So for those of you who are out that direction, I would love to see if we could connect during that time. Right now, what my tentative plan is, since I'm going to be in the Dalles on Saturday, October 4th, what I'd really like to do is rent a car out in, probably fly into Boise, rent a car there, drive to Ontario, and then spend the next couple days just kind of driving around and meeting with different people in that part of the state. If those days are not good for you, I totally understand. It's no big deal, but I will follow up with you and see if we can put something together, because I'd love to spend some time with you while I'm out there. Likewise, Pendleton on the 9th and 10th. I'm going to be out there for a professional development for the Partnership and Innovation Grant, but I do have some time on the 10th to meet with folks. I'll be in Yamhill for the literacy campaign launch on October 15th, Central Oregon on the 17th, and Marion and Clackamas on those other 2 dates. And those are obviously, you know, easy places for me to get to anytime. I just put them on here so folks would know what's on the agenda. So this is what I have kind of in place, and I'll be following up. And feel free, if you see dates on here that, you know, where I'm going to be in your part of the state and it looks like it's going to work for you to connect, please let me know. I'd love to make it happen if we can. Okay, last thing. A few upcoming events that I would love everybody to have on their radar. In October and early November will be the launch of the statewide literacy campaign that we've talked about a little bit in the past. Just to refresh everybody's memory, the statewide literacy campaign is basically an awareness-raising campaign that's part of the same funding package as our literacy grant. The theme of the campaign is story time. And really what this is about is you know, kind of really a lot of the things that we heard Aaron talk about, helping parents and caregivers help children become readers through play and through talking and through singing and through stories. And, you know, we want to get people reading together, but we also want to be taking this really broad look at what early literacy is and all of the things that families can do that are easy and accessible that can help kids become readers. So that's what the campaign is about in a nutshell. On our next TA WebEx, which is on October 23rd, we'll be going into much more detail about the literacy campaign and how you all can tap into the resources that are associated with the campaign in your communities to really augment the work that you're already doing. So Kristen Gimbel, who is the communications director for the Oregon Education Investment Board, and who is the point person on the campaign, will be joining us on that call. And she's great, and she'll be sharing a lot of information about the campaign. Last thing is the Early Years to Early Grades Conference on November 6th that will be taking place at the Sheraton at the Portland Airport that I know you've all heard about so far. The link on here is the registration link. The registration is open, and what this conference is all about is really building some excitement and some positive energy in our state, building on the positive energy that already exists, I should say, around a pre-K through third grade approach to improving children's educational outcomes, but specifically around literacy and specifically with an eye towards third grade reading proficiency. And thinking about really how we do that in a way that increases access to learning opportunities for children, that closes achievement gaps, that is culturally responsive, that builds partnerships between schools and the child care community and the pre-K community, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting. We're bringing Christy Cowers from the University of Washington down to share about her framework for pre-K through third grade approaches, and we're going to have lots of exciting, breakout sessions and things like that as well. So for those of you that are involved in partnership and innovation grants, this is really an awesome professional learning opportunity, but really for everybody, because this is ultimately all about literacy and improving outcomes for kids is kind of what it comes down to. So feel free to follow that link and go in and register if you're ready. For those of you that either are or have partners that work on the child care side, we are putting together a scholarship fund primarily targeted for child care providers, because we want to make sure that we're getting as many people from the early learning community as possible, and we know that child care providers don't often have the same kinds of professional learning budgets that the K-12 has available to it. So that's the conference in a nutshell. Final comments or questions before we wrap up? I know we're just about out of time.
Exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, lots happening.
So we should we email you some dates?
Yeah.
That might coincide with your schedule.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. If you would like to email me some dates, that'd be great.
That's good.
And Julie, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could email me some dates that would coincide with a good time of year to golf at Salishan, that would be just perfect.
Oh,
I would love
okay.
it.
Okay.
I'm just playing around,
We'll have a story hour at Salishan on one of the greens.
Perfect. I love it. All right. Any last questions or comments before we wrap up?
Yeah, Brett?
Yeah.
Brett? Yep, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about funding. You know, obviously a one-year program, you said additional funding would go through the hub. Do you have any kind of a gut feeling on that? In other words, you know, we get the ball rolling and then, you know, the potential is that the funding runs out. I mean, do you have a gut feeling on whether the programs would continue and we'd get funding in additional years?
Yeah, Jim, I would say my gut feeling is, and again, this is gut feeling, a lot can change, and don't want to overpromise here. I think that there is still going to be early literacy funding available in the next biennium. I think and I hope, and I'm sort of being a perpetual optimist here. How that funding is structured and what the specifics of it are, I think that's really the big question. And again, gut feeling, not promising. I would think that it would make sense for that funding to go through the early learning hubs,
Right.
But I don't know, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. And hopefully we'll know earlier in the session than later, but again, we'll just have to kind of hold our breath and see. So I think that the best thing that we can do and that you can do right now is to just keep plowing forward, assuming that the work will continue, and always keeping an eye on the importance of that program evaluation data. I mean, that's part of the reason why I am kind of overemphasizing that piece, is that that's really, between the activity output reports, the budget pieces, and that program evaluation data and the stories that we're able to collect, that's really what we have to show for this investment, right? That's how we tell the story that this is worth continuing to invest in. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And, wish I could be more concrete right now, and as soon as we are able to be more concrete, and as soon as we know what the landscape is going to look like, we'll let you know.
Great. And then silly question, I don't recall, are we in the middle of that biennium, or, I mean, is it over? Do we have another year, 2 years, or I forget how that works?
So the current biennium and your current funding cycle runs through June 25th, or
right.
June 30th, 2015. So, you basically have 9 months,
right.
Or a school year, essentially, for your current grant. So that means grant activities need to be conducted within that time frame, and it also means that grant dollars need to be spent within that time frame. So,
I mean, the state biennium, though, the two-year program, did that just start again this July? Is it 2 years?
No,
or is it?
No, we're in the middle. So it's June 30, 2015 is when the biennium ends.
That's what I couldn't remember. Thanks. Okay, got it.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sure thing, Jim. Okay, any last questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, in that case, thank you all very much, and a special thanks to Aaron for taking the time to share about the learning picnics. That was really wonderful. Thank you all, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right, take care.